I got my kitty stuffed while waiting for my laundry to finish. Earlier today, I was running some errands, and one of them was doing the week's laundry. The place was packed, so I decided to wait for my clothes to be done outside. A guy approached me, and we started chatting. He was handsome and charming, and I was feeling quite flirty. He asked me what I was doing, and I explained that I was waiting for my laundry. He said he was in the same situation, and offered me a cigarette. We smoked and chatted some more, and I could feel myself getting wetter by the minute. I've been feeling quite lonely, so any male attention drives me to the edge. We were laughing and joking, and suddenly he grabbed me and pushed me against the alley's wall. He started kissing me, and I was so turned on I couldn't resist. I unzipped his pants and got on my knees, sucking his D like a madwoman. I was playing with his tip using my tongue, massaging his ball bag while he held my head with two hands and smiling at him like a sleut from the movies. We were both out of breath, but I didn't want to stop. I unzipped my pants and bent over, and he effed me from behind. It was wild and rough, and I loved every second of it. He was holding me by my hair, effing me like an animal. I wanted to moan and scream and ignore the other people, but I didn't think anyone in the laundromat could ignore what was going on, so he kept me shut while going at me. His hands were strong and significant, leaving a few marks around my body. He was going so hard that I could swear I was in heaven from his strength. I could hear him boding quietly behind me, and it sent shivers all over my body. He would rub my bean while effing me, and it was driving me insane. He turned me around and sat me on an old bench, and he continued to eff me, this time slower and more passionate. He would kiss me while entering me, and he would look me in the eyes while thrusting. He picked up the pace again, and we were both close to finishing this time. We were both sweating and breathing heavily, and I felt like I would bust at any second. When he finally came inside me, I felt so satisfied and happy that I came too. He helped me up, and we got our clothes and left. Things were so good that I didn't even realize how dumb I was for letting a stranger F me without a condom and bust inside. But I must admit that I loved everything. I'm now going to do my laundry more frequently.
My son nut all over my face. My son's biggest passion is soccer, and I always used to watch his games and take him to practice and would proudly watch him. I used to take him and his friend home 3 to 4 days a week because they were living close, and it was his best friend that didn't have that much support from his parents, and I felt bad for it. It was match day and they were having an important match for finals in a local league. In the first half my son scored 2 goals, so it was 2-0. Second half starts and the other team scored 3 goals and overturned the match, and it was the 87th minute and it was 3-2. My son's friend scored an equalizer at 3-3, and then his friend scored 2 goals because they had 6 minutes of extra time leading to winning the local cup, and everyone was so happy and we celebrated singing. I got out of the chair and jumped. At this point I was so happy and told them that I was taking them home so we can celebrate. Son's best friend asked that because they are the winners they both want a reward because they put in so much effort, and he said that because they won he wants to see my cherries. Obviously I flashed him and my son also saw it, and they started laughing and being excited. Follow for part 2.
Hey, saw you in class earlier. Love your dress. Your outfit is really awesome. Weird question though. Have you ever imagined slowly turning into a pig? You're welcome for the compliment, by the way. And the reason I ask is, I think you'd look really good slowly turning into one. A pig, that is. I'm not saying you're fat or anything. It's just the image in my mind of you slowly turning into a pig is just... I thought I'd ask if you'd ever thought of it as well. Hey, Juan here. That was inspired by this message someone sent. You have the ability to say anything. Anything in the world. And you say this. Just makes you want to stare into the abyss and forget that you're human along with these people. It's ridiculous. Fellas, don't tell the girl you like you want to watch her slowly turn into a pig. Please, don't.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you like to mail that package today?
No, I just carry this around as a fashion statement.
That's a good joke, sir. I'll definitely have to use that one.
Why would you use that joke when you're not a customer? You work here.
That's an excellent point, sir. Yes, I do work here. Anyway, what type of item are you sending today?
It's a KVM switch.
Okay, would that fall under general electronics, or...?
It's a KVM switch.
Right, but I need to pick the category on the screen. I'm wondering, is it a general electronic? Is it a computer part? Is it...
It's a hardware device for dual setup.
Sorry, sir, I'm still not clear what that is, but if you can just provide the category, I can get you on your way.
I can't believe I have to do this.
Yes, I can't believe you're doing this either, sir.
Okay, let's break it down. KVM. K for keyboard.
Excellent. It's a computer part. I'll just put that down. I'm so glad we had this discussion, sir.
Reddit, what is your most cringe story about someone who has a crush on you? My work started using a program that began hiring ex-cons. One of the guys hired through this program started showing interest in me. I wasn't attracted to him at all and made it clear to him, repeatedly. Long story short, he got fired 3 months later but kept coming around the store to visit his friends. I go out to my car to read during lunch like normal and go inside, and no sooner than when I clock in, I hear a page that I have a phone call. It's him. All he says is, "You look so pretty when you're reading." I hung up immediately and told the manager. He kept doing more things that escalated the creepiness. I ended up getting an emergency restraining order against him when I found out he added me as an emergency contact with his parole officer. I didn't even know him.
Edit. What's your cringy nice guy story? A few years before I met my husband, he decided to go to a party. He gets there and some random girl walks up to him, says you're cute and kisses him. This amused him, so he started chatting with her. While chatting, he notices a very angry, short man standing next to her. The man is scowling at my husband and it's making him uncomfortable. He can tell the guy is pissed at the attention girl is giving him and it's just not worth it, so he stops talking to random girl, turns away, and starts walking to another room. It's at this point husband feels short man punch him in the back. When he turns around, short man is running away and actually runs out of the house and never returns to the party. Husband laughs it off, cause it wasn't even a hard punch. But then somebody notices husband is bleeding and there is a hole in his shirt. The short fucker hadn't punched him, he stabbed him. Random girl saw this all go down and was pretty mortified. Turns out the short dude was obsessed with her, they were best friends, and he accompanied her everywhere. The knife was pretty small, so it didn't do any real damage, but he still has the scar.
What up, Reddit? It's Kendrick Lamar. 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 What up, Reddit? It's Kendrick Lamar.
What up, Reddit? It's Kendrick Lamar.
Well then, tell your a-hole boyfriend he needs to watch his back.
What is the grossest thing you've ever done? When I was really young, like 15 years old, we had this female dog. I would just spend my days crawling around with her pretending to be a dog as well. You know, a kid being a kid. I would roll around with her in the mud, crawl around with her across the house, sometimes even try to eat out of the food bowl with her. She gave birth to 3 puppies over the course of a year. I would then pretend to be one of the puppies and do whatever they are doing as if she was my mother. Occasionally I would watch her breastfeeding her puppies and I would get curious on what it tasted like. So one day, I was playing around like normal pretending to be a puppy and after an hour or so she began breastfeeding the puppies. I then straight up sucked on her nipple along with them. Obviously I was a wee little kid so I didn't know any better. I was just trying to be a puppy too. But after getting breastfed I realized that I kinda like how it tasted. So I then would continue to drink milk from her for the next few months. It became part of my morning routine. I would even start experimenting by milking her into a cup and adding it to my cereal, or adding it to milkshakes. But remember I was just a tiny little innocent kid. One day my mom would catch me in the action, full mouth to nipple, and I got in major trouble. She thought I was mentally ill and tried to send me to a therapist, but I would tell her how I was just a child who didn't know any better. Remember I was only 15. I also told her if she would have just breastfed me herself this wouldn't have been a problem to begin with. I gained consciousness a few years later and I remembered what I'd done, and I am a bit disgusted looking back at
My daughter called the police on us and said we abused her so that she could be with her dad. 3 weeks later, she called me, crying and wanting to return to live with me. It was a horrible experience having police and child services coming to my home and questioning us about the alleged abuse. She sat through the whole meeting smirking, and told them she wanted to stay with her dad. I could tell she didn't care about the stress she put us through. I told my ex what happened, and he agreed she could live with him full time. That was 3 weeks ago, and during these weeks, my other children have been happier, and my husband has been less stressed. It doesn't feel like we are walking around a time bomb, ready to go off. Then, last night, my daughter rang me up crying, saying she hates it at her dad's and wants to come home. I told her she chose to go there and was sorry, but she would have to stay there. She kept begging, but I refused as I felt like it was because she got told no to something she wanted and was just acting up. My parents rang me up after I ended the call and asked how I could do that to her. It's like I'm abandoning my child. I said if they felt that way, then feel free to offer their home to her, but no, they couldn't because of their health. They knew that too. They hung up on me, and since then, I have been getting sent nasty texts about abandoning my child. Am I the a-hole?
You'll get over it.
The most turned on you have ever been. I was with my stepsister one night. I was 17, she was 18. Not only had I accepted my friend's week-long no-nut challenge, and had teenage boy hormones coursing through my body, I had to deal with my beautiful brunette stepsister walking around in her beautiful bare feet, her thin crop top and short shorts. I decided to be sneaky. I had recently brought some SX chocolate and thought it was a good idea to take some and sit in the same room as her. Well, that is what I did. Our parents were out of the house and I took 4 squares of the Tabs chocolate. The next 2 hours can only be described as torment as throughout the movie my legs squirmed, I began sweating, could not take my eyes off her feet, all while she was cuddled up next to me. I knew she had no romantic interests in me so I could not risk it. Instead I concocted a plan. I would go upstairs to use the toilet. Not to make it obvious as to why I was doing it, I decided to start groaning in stomach pain semi-consistently. Her, being the sweetheart that she was, put her hand on my shoulder and whispered, "It is all okay. Just relax." Deep breaths. That was the breaking point. I threw my blanket off and sprinted to the toilet, sat down and rubbed one out. I think I nutted in under 20 seconds, but the nut itself lasted for close to a minute. No exaggeration. I started groaning pretty loudly by the end and she came up to ask if I'm okay. Between heavy breaths I responded, "All good." I walked out another minute later and said, "Okay, I'm good now." The funny part is, we ended up trying the chocolate a week later together and sleeping there, and then, I am quite ashamed to say, my stepsister took my V card. Straight males of Reddit, what's the gayest thing you've ever done? One of my best friends is gay. He refers to this as a no homo bro cuddle. I went to his house and stayed the night and we slept in the same bed. Completely non-sexual but did spoon for comfort and just to cuddle. Reason being, his dad had recently died and he had been sleeping poorly since. He lives alone. Said he just needed someone to cuddle with for comfort so he could get a good night's sleep. His love life is in shambles so he didn't want another gay man because he knew they would just try to F him as part of the deal. So I obliged and he slept well for the first time since the funeral. It was pretty gay to spoon with a gay man in his bed overnight, but I don't regret it.
I told you there is no such thing as an unsinkable ship. Actually, it didn't breach the hull, it dented the hull. Mods! Where are the mods? Am I the asshole for wanting to get on the lifeboats before the women and children? This boat deserves to sink. It's a symbol of the oppressive elite. You know JP Morgan owns this boat, right? You know this never would have happened if the crew was union. This is karma, and not the good kind. Okay, I know we're sinking, but there is a serious lack of diversity on this ship. Okay, no, I need to get on this lifeboat, okay? I have 40,000 karma.
I hired a male babysitter to make sure my older son wouldn't have intimacy with a female babysitter, but I found out he was gay. Last week, due to work-related reasons, my husband and I were not going to be at home Friday night. Normally this wouldn't be a problem as my 16-year-old takes care of my 8-year-old when this happens, but he had soccer practice until 8 p.m. which means he was arriving home say 9. Too late. So we had to get a babysitter. Luckily for me, the school has a list of teens that are available for odd jobs and we could get one of them. Because we live a little bit far away and whoever came likely needed to stay the night, I decided no girls for obvious reasons. I know, sex should not be a taboo but teenage hormones are teenage hormones and modesty aside, my genes are good. My boy is quite handsome if I do say so myself and I don't want to be a grandma before reaching the 50s. So we get a boy, a pretty decent young man a grade below my son, super friendly, with good references. Perfect in all ways. I left Friday night trusting my awesome mama ideas. Come Saturday morning 7 a.m. and things are weird. First of all, my teenage son is awake, he would never, ever, not in a million years wake early on weekends. Last time I saw him do that he was 10. And both guys were, I don't know how to explain it, but you could feel it. They looked uncomfortable when talking to each other during breakfast but at the same time wanted to talk. And in hindsight I can swear they were blushing like crazy. I didn't think too much of it until recently when I casually heard my son talking on the phone and he mentioned this kid's name, not at all common in our area. I also realized that this week he has been talking a lot on the phone, normally he would just text. I know, it's all very vague, but while I never had the vibe my son could be gay is not entirely impossible. And I was sure something happened that night between them. A few days later, I was driving down the street past the park to do some groceries. What I saw almost made me throw up or crash my car. The boys were sitting on a bench at the park. Damn near eating each other's faces out. I didn't know what to do, I'll handle that later. At that moment, I had to get out before I started screaming. I guess my little plan against teenage love completely backfired. My mom gave me to her boyfriend. During my childhood my mom always seemed to have a new stream of boyfriends and I never liked them, they came too fast and were gone too quick. I never knew my dad, just knew he didn't want me so from a young age I developed a strained connection with any man that came into my life. When I was about 6 years old my mom introduced me to her new boyfriend. He was quiet but nice and never told me what to do or try to take on the parent role like the others. Surprisingly, months passed and he remained a constant presence in our lives without attempting to parent me. Then one night I hear raised voices. I was used to the yelling due to my mom's previous behavior and that this happened to be a regular occurrence. I didn't realize until later that my mom was the problem in her relationships or at least equally at fault, so imagine my surprise when my door burst open and in walks my mother with her boyfriend not far behind. I still remember the way she grabbed my upper arm before forcefully pushing me to her boyfriend saying here take her, I never wanted a child anyway. Now let's call her boyfriend Ray. I could tell Ray was pissed and I was scared because I'd never seen a man that angry before. At that point I was sobbing because I was a kid and scared, I had no idea what they were fighting about and things escalated quickly after that. My mom started to go around my room and fill a duffel bag and a backpack with my clothes before hurling them at Ray who saw that I was crying and started to silently pace back and forth instead of yelling back at her. She started screaming at us to get out and I was still bawling, I even tried to walk to her but she just pushed me back. I remember being so hurt and confused on why she wouldn't hug me before Ray picked me up and scooped my bags off the floor as my mom continued to shout at us. She even started to push us back to move faster and as soon as we stepped outside she threw this folder at us and said that's her birth certificate. Have a nice life. Before slamming the door and leaving me in the arms of a man I barely knew. We stood there, him in silence and my crying getting louder before he looked at me and smiled saying everything's cool and I'm gonna be okay. He put me in the passenger seat of his massive truck and threw my bags in the back before turning to me and asking do you want to go get ice cream? Now 13 years later he's the best father I could ask for and I never saw my mom again. I know who she is and where I can find her but I don't want to. She abandoned her child and I'll never forgive her for that. Whereas my dad has been there for every second of my life since we were kicked out all those years ago.